really what we're
Your
talking about,
arguments
because
are
what I'm
used
talking
by
about,
every
what I'm
tyrannical
talking
group around the
about,
world. You are doing exactly what I accuse people like you of doing. You're essentializing racial differences and turning them into grievances that state power can be used to
but the
solve.
issue is that there's like live their lives without colonial oppression,
You're
live their
speed
lives without
running.
racism.
You're speed running all the talking points that I hear from white nationalists. If you want to address the power difference, you can do that without genocide. I feel like I had some clippable moments, but in a good way, you know, like a good clippable moments.
0% of you are subscribed. Fix that.
My point is they should have the right to determine if they want to live with those people or not. That doesn't actually have to always look like genocide. These are the people who are colonized, and they have to have their own autonomy to decide what happens after being colonized by people.
Well,
And again, I
within
don't think
limits,
that's
right?
the solution for them.
Well, within
I
limits. I
think
mean, they
they
couldn't go
should get
like,
to
we
decide
get to
those
kill them all.
limits.
Well, wait. If Native Americans
Yeah.
wanted to start like taking out a blood debt on white people, I don't think they should be allowed to just start killing us, right?
I highly doubt that if we gave the land back to indigenous people, that they would do the same thing that white people did to them. And I think that's also like a mistake around black people. Like black people having power doesn't mean that they're going to just like start murdering white people.
Yeah,
white people just like want equality, or black people just want equality.
Wait, but I don't
So
have
it's
a
like, I think
problem
people should have.
with land back. I don't have a problem with black people having power. I'm specifically saying I take issue with your claim that oppressed people have the right to determine whether or not they want to live with their oppressor.
People can't even talk about like, wow, what would it be like to live in a world where we're not around the people who are oppressing us all the time? And then we talk about this, and then we start talking about separatism as this wild extreme. And it's like there are separatism that I think is this wild extreme, but there's also separatism.
You're doing it back and forth. Just to be told.
Just to be, it is, and we don't have room for this conversation.
So just to be clear, I don't think you have a right to live in a world without white people or in a country without white people. You keep dancing back and forth between these 2 points. I don't think any ethnic or racial group has a right to exclude or expel other ethnic or racial groups for any reason, no matter who was the colonized or the colonizer. So when I would like to talk about like being careful, the language you used in your first video about me was explicitly.
Okay.
Wait, no, hold, wait, please let me finish.
I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna let you finish.
The video that you did, the first video that you made on me, explicitly said that colonized people should have the right to choose whether to live with their oppressors. Now, when we're talking about live with, I assume you don't mean literally like room and board. I assume you mean a country. And that is explicitly an endorsement of ethno-nationalism. There's no way to remove a large racial group from a country without genocide. There's just no way around it. You can't like...
That's just not true. Like literally, I just gave examples of people in Africa who, like in Kenya, for example, like the way they got colonized people out is they retook the businesses that colonized people took. And because they didn't have any economic interest in there, they left. Now, that's still not separatism because there's still white people who live in Kenya, but they were able to...
To be specific, when you say that, do you mean all their possessions were seized and they were destitute and poor and had no choice but to leave the country?
So it's like
the Native Americans
I'm sure they're nice people.
Do you think the Native Americans should be able to seize the entirety of the United States of America because this was originally their land?
I honestly think that we should just give the land back to indigenous people, and I bet you they're not going to kick us all out. What is the land?
You mean the entirety of the United States of America, the largest and most powerful country on earth? You want to get the whole thing? You want to, do we still keep our democracy? Do the 330 million people in this country just suddenly now live under however reservations are governed? How do they organize that? Who gets which pieces of land?
I don't think I'm the person to ask. I think you should ask indigenous people.
I think if I asked them, I think they would kind of laugh at the question because I don't think this is on the table or anyone would take it seriously.
I think indigenous people would think it's, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think they would laugh at getting their land back.
Well, land back is defensible, some parts of land, but the entirety of America, like take everything.
I kind of think that's up to indigenous people, though. I don't want to like misspeak, so I'm not gonna, because they were colonized.
Do you think being the victim of oppression,
we're living on colonized land, because indigenous people are still trying to get much of their land back, and I think a lot of indigenous people don't necessarily want all of their land back either. And again, that's what I'm saying, is like it's up to these people to determine because it's actually theirs. And I think a lot of indigenous people don't want to do what white people did to them. I think a lot of them.
Yeah, out of curiosity, do you support Israel? Because that territory was originally theirs.
Israel is a lot more complicated than that territory originally being there. Like there's
is it more complicated, or are you just on the different end of that particular political question? like this to me, the idea that land is forever yours.
My point is that they need to be listened to.
Yeah, to be clear.
Does that make sense?
No, I think it's almost incoherent. So you'd make the argument that
it's almost
if you're
incoherent that I'm making the argument that colonized people should be able to determine what to do with colonization. So you can't understand that. It's an incoherent.
Yeah, because we have superseding laws and ethical structures that determine the extent to which anyone could do anything. We even have international law these days. So you have explicitly argued for ethno-states over the course of this discussion. I don't think an oppressed or colonized group has the right to build an ethno-state. I don't think that Saudi Arabia has a right to treat women the way they do just because they're an autonomous nation. I don't think Israel has a right to reclaim its territory just because 4,000 years ago they controlled that land. And I don't think the entirety of the United States of America should be ceded to the shattered, fragmented remains of what was once thousands of tribes that crossed the entire dual continents. I think that like the discussion of ethics on this is way more complicated. And when you reduce it down to the colonized get to decide.
Oh my God, that's what I'm saying.
No, but your answer is the colonized get to decide. And I'm saying that is too simplistic. And not only is that more simplistic, that also implicitly defends a lot of really bad behavior potentially. Which is why in your video, you said that the oppressed have a right to determine whether they would continue to live with their oppressors. And we know when you said that, you didn't just mean buying out properties that were colonized so that the people left of their own volition. We know it doesn't end with that. Now, I'll ask you again, when it comes to South Africa, what do you think of the 6 million white people who live in that country? Do you think the black people, who are by far the majority, have a right to remove the white population?
I personally don't think that would be a good idea, but I do think that
do they have a right
it's up to... Yeah, I think so. I think they have the right to discuss what to do about that. And if that means that they have to remove the people, then I think that they would have a right to do that. But I think that would be really harsh. And I think that they're not even going to do that.
Out of curiosity, do you know how many Jews died in the Holocaust?
I think 6 million.
Do you know what Hitler tried to do with them before the Holocaust began?
See, this is what I'm saying. Like me being like...
Just answer the question, Professor.
People should have the right to self-determination.
Answer the question.
Answer the question.
You are literally comparing me to Hitler and Nazis right now.
Answer the question.
Just answer the question.
What did he try to do before he killed them?
I'm not going to answer the question because you literally are proving my point.
He tried to remove
you literally
them.
Can't. You did Jewish people colonize Germany?
You keep saying that. I don't think it's relevant. Jewish people in Germany.
The context hold on.
Jewish people in Germany were innocent, regular people, and white people in South Africa are innocent, regular people. The seeds of colonization are a sociological phenomena that runs back hundreds of years. It's not like there are 6 million people who are born white and thus instantly become colonizers. You are doing exactly what I accuse people like you of doing. You're essentializing racial differences and turning them into grievances that state power can be used to solve.
But the issue is that there's still a power dynamic of white people running South Africa.
Okay, but
how do people who are colonized get their power back? Then they should do genocide, but people should be able to have a conversation about what to do to have their own self-determination, to be able to live their lives without colonial oppression, live their lives without racism.
You're speed running all the talking points that I hear from white nationalists. If you want to address the power difference, you can do that without genocide.
I'm not saying that people should just commit genocide. I'm saying there's so many different responses to colonization.
You said they would have the right to remove them.
To do.
You said they would have the right to remove them.
I think if they decided like, hey, we don't want the people who colonized us to stay here, let's figure out a way to like have them move or something like that. I think that'd be very harsh. Again, that's not something that I would agree with, but I think the people who are colonized should have the self-determination to decide what to do about the people who have colonized them.
Okay, so out of curiosity,
and I think you're also like,
do you think that Saudi Arabia has a right to throw gay people off rooftops? It's their culture. Do they not have a right to self-determine their moral system with regards to
see, like gay people are oppressed though.
Wait, hold on. No, they're not. Gay people in Saudi Arabia are just a product of Western degeneracy that feeds in through global media. In reality, it's actually a product of white international cultural bias that is infesting the people in Saudi Arabia. So given they're basically a symptom of Western degeneracy, do you think they not have a right to address that in whatever way they think is most culturally effective?
I think that's not really what we're
Your
talking about,
arguments
because
are
what I'm
used
talking
by
about,
every
what I'm
tyrannical
talking
group around the
about,
world. What you're saying is that any state that can justify its sense of persecution therefore has a right to engage in genocide against ethnic minorities within their borders. Every tyrannical regime does this. No tyrannical regime in history has ever said, yep, we're on top, we're the bad guys, we're just killing for fun. They always construct a narrative of persecution, and whether that narrative is correct or not really doesn't make much of a difference. If you have the ability to fix the power differential without genocide, but then you do genocide anyway, that's pretty bad, right?
My point is that people need to determine that. We need to look at each situation and the situation that people are in, because
Okay.
again, we're talking about various different countries.
So
We're
what if
not
it
just
turned
talking
out,
about like a monolith of people.
what if people thought within a country that the only way for them to escape colonialism, read racial diversity in their country, was through the wholesale slaughter of the white people who lived there? Do you think that would be justified? Like, if they were like, this is how we're determining our decolonization, would you have a problem with that?
I think that would be pretty messed up, actually. Again, like, I'm not a separatist, but I think people should decide what they need to do. And I also think realistically that just would never happen, because it's just really impractical on multiple levels.
So
like,
you think it's bad, but you think they have a right to do it?
I'm hot and cold at the same time!
He needs more blankets and he needs less blankets.
I'm afraid you're right.
I think that it depends what the situation is. Like, if that's the only way to get colonizers out, then okay. But again, when you look at people who've been colonized, that's just not what they do.
So
They
just
try to take
okay?
the power. They try to take the power away by taking their businesses back, for example.
Okay, I know how it's normally done, because I don't think most of them are as psychotic as the limits of your moral philosophy would allow. But you're saying essentially that you would be okay with them. Like, that's just an okay to you? Like, oh, we killed millions of people because of their race. And I don't necessarily like that, but I think they had a right to do that. Is that what we're going with? What else do you allow in the name of anti-colonialism? What about the...
Okay, well, say then I don't think it's right to just slaughter a bunch of people. That does seem really fucked up, but I think that people should be able to figure out how to get rid of their colonizers. We can agree that, like, okay, mass genocide isn't good. How about that? Like, we agree on that. And I think that, like, where we disagree...
The point that you made was that oppressed people have a right to physically excise the race they associate with their oppressors if they seize control of a state, which is a form of genocide. Undeniably, a mass deportation of people, at the very least, counts as a cultural genocide. UN definitions vary, which I just don't think is defensible.
It is that people should have the right to determine if they want to live with people who have colonized them or not.
That's what I just said. I'm only saying that genocide is probably pretty bad.
So it's like, again, okay, genocide's wrong, but you need to understand that, like, there's the way that people decolonize themselves looks really different, that there are wars even. So hold on, I'm not. So we're moving off.
We're moving off these points so far and so fast. You're like backpedaling like crazy. We need to address a couple of fundamental.
Not really backpedaling. I'm trying to establish what I'm saying, because you're accusing me of saying that I'm cool with genocide, and that's never a claim that
the video. So I don't even need to cite the video. In the course of this conversation, you have explicitly said you would be okay with the deportation of an ethnic minority if they were responsible for colonizing the country. You said that in this convo, so I don't even need to cite anything else. Maybe you moved off that point, in which case, congratulations.
I'm okay with people deporting people who have colonized them. In the context of colonialism, I'm okay with people who are colonized being like, we need to get rid of the people who have colonized us.
Yeah. So, right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I said.
Cool.
So
I think there's like ways that could happen that would be really messed up, but I do think it's for the Black South Africans to figure out like how to do that in general. Like, I will agree that, like, okay, like mass genocide, that's fucked up. Mass deportation, I think, depending on how like people are thinking of like deporting people who have colonized them, I'm not really sure what that would look like. I definitely think that can be a line that's crossed. But ultimately, what I'm just trying to say is that people who are colonized need to be able to get rid of the people who have colonize them, to be able to have their own power back.
I'm just saying,
and that looks very
you can
different.
talk about that, but when you talk mass deportation, then it turns out all the countries bordering yours don't want to accept millions of refugees. Then you start having conversations about where you're going to put all these people that you had lined at the border. You build camps to hold them and train yards to make sure supplies can be reached from those places. And eventually, it's not like this only happened in Germany, you know. You still leave room for, you know, like horrible stuff to be done. And that's the only thing I'm saying. I'm just saying we shouldn't do ethno-states and we shouldn't do genocides. That's my, you know, my hot take, I guess. I don't know.
I think my point is that I can understand why people are like, I don't want to live with people who have oppressed me anymore. And I think people need to be able to talk about that.
All I'm saying is that you can talk about that. I feel like I understand the feelings. It's just, I can't get around the fact that they're identical to white nationalist arguments that I've heard. Because this is how it goes too, right? You talk about the abstracts of white nationalism, and they're like, well, yeah, I probably can't seize control of the US, so I'll just move over to, what's a really white state? Idaho? I don't know. I'm going to move over to some all-white commune, and we're going to buy all the property so there's no room for a black person to move in next door, and I just want to be rid of all the black crime or whatever, and hey, you know, oppression, interpersonal oppression from white people to black people can suck, but crime can also suck. So we're all sort of acting out our harms, our traumas here. I just don't think that justifies like the formation of, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just, you can just go so many bad roads with that.
I think that would be pretty messed up, actually.
Highlights? Yeah, that's the term, highlights.